Welcome, viewers and listeners, to another edition of CHP Talks. I'm here with Mr. Jacob Watson from Oxford in Ontario, Oxford Electoral District, and Jacob is going to be a candidate for us. Jacob, thank you for joining us today on this call.
Thanks for having me, Rod. It's an honor.
Yeah, super. Well, it's great to have you with us, and I'm going to just tell folks a couple things about you. We can bring out more during the interview, but Jacob is from Oxford County in Ontario. He's been married for 5 years to Jenna. He's been a board member on the Christian Heritage Party local electoral district association for a year and a few months. He's the lead evangelist at his church. He's been involved in youth ministry for the last 6 years, and he currently works a 9 to 5 at Stubbs Precast driving forklift. Well, I was a forklift driver once myself in the lumber industry, so I understand what that's about, a little bit of it anyway.
Yeah, the full package of the nerves and the skill, eh?
Yeah, well, I've spilled loads of lumber before and had to pick them up and gone through the hoops that way. And you're trying to keep up with production and not let people down. And somebody needs something moved and whatever. But I actually enjoyed it a lot. I've enjoyed all my work experience a lot. So you also, before we get into the discussion about the political side of things and your candidacy for the CHP, you've just come back from a little mission trip. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and my wife just went on our first overseas missions trip together. We went to a town in Colombia called Cali. It's a city that has just over 2 million people in it. And we weren't just in Cali, we went to local villages and neighborhoods around. We impacted 75 churches in 55 visits. We spent up to 4 hours at every church we went to, training them how to pray for each other and also teaching and training evangelism. So we would do in-house training, but then we'd also take them out in their communities and teach the churches how to evangelize. And we also did a really good teaching on a very simple Bible study that anybody's capable of holding, just for those people that sometimes when you first lead someone to their Lord, they're not always ready to jump right in and go to church. Church can be a little bit intimidating, but we still want to be able to connect and give milk to those that need milk. So we also did a teaching on a very simple Bible study they could host in their house or in other people's houses.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, there are so many aspects to missionary work and evangelization. We believe that we have a message as Christians, not only the Christian Heritage Party, but as believers in Christ, we have a message that is good for people. It's not something we want to impose on them. It's something we want to offer them because Jesus gives life. And we're so happy that we have the words of life written for us. And we're happy for those who take the time and energy and dedicate themselves to spreading the good word. So thanks for doing that. Um,
Absolutely.
Now, you're in Oxford Electoral District. And how long have you lived there? Have you moved there recently or been there for a long time?
So I'm Oxford County born and raised. There's very few times, brief windows in my life where I actually moved outside of Oxford County, but 95% of my life I was born in Oxford, born in Woodstock, raised on a 50-acre farm just outside of Woodstock, just north, heading towards Tavistock. And my wife is also local to Oxford as well. So all our ties, all our community ties, all our family ties, everything's right here in Oxford.
Wonderful. That's great. I've had there's always a good side and a bad side, but I've done a lot of moving even as a young person with my parents. We moved a lot. And then even as an adult with my wife, we've moved a lot, been lived in different spots and different jobs, but I really respect those who have their roots deep in their community and who understand the way things work in that area. And of course, farming is something near and dear to my heart and essential for candidates to survive. We have to have people growing food, and so thanks for being part of that. Now, you have children, is that
No, we don't have any children yet. We're actually praying for our first child this year.
wonderful? Wonderful. Well, that will be a blessing when that happens. We've just become great grandparents in the last couple of years, so every stage is a blessing, and just watching young lives develop is such a treat. So you have something to look forward to there. Now,
Absolutely.
what prompted you? First of all, maybe I'll just ask how you heard about the Christian Heritage Party, and what prompted you to want to get involved. Maybe just start there.
So the first time I heard about the Christian Heritage Party was actually at my church. So the church I attend, it's Trumpet of Truth Christian Ministries, and it's a very politically active church. And they had a few years ago, they had a all candidates meeting at our church, and our pastor was very encouraging for everyone to come out and check it out. So I went and I checked it out, and they had all the parties there, and that was the first time I heard of the Christian Heritage Party. And instantly, before I even heard the candidate speak, I instantly knew they had my vote because I could just, I don't know, my spirit was just in agreement. They're doing biblical principles, and I feel like I can vote for them and have a clear conscience. So before I even understood what they were about, I was like, yes, these guys have my vote.
Wonderful. Well, that's pretty unique. We had a leader of our party before me. Was a guy who he said he saw what was going on in the country. This is quite a few years ago. He said, we got to start a Christian party around here. And then he went, checked out the Elections Canada list of political parties. He found there already was one. And then he became involved. And a couple of years later, he became our national leader for some time. And it was
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's actually amazing to see how many Christians are willing to get involved with the CHP once they know we exist, once they know we're out there.
right. That is one of our biggest challenges, is that we do not get the free national coverage that from the CBC. Well, I shouldn't say free. It costs the taxpayers 1.2
Quite a bit of
billion
money.
dollars a year, but it's those larger political parties, the conservatives and liberals, the NDP, get a lot of benefit of name recognition and being interviewed and whatever that we don't generally get. Very rarely that we have an opportunity to speak to the people of Canada on that platform. But we so we have to work in a smaller realm. We have word of mouth. We produce our brochures. We have our website, our social media, and all that. But it definitely, we don't have all the advantages the big parties have. So when people hear about us, like you say, many people do not know we exist, and that's a real shame because we're just as legitimate as any of the big parties. So we do all the same work to get and stay registered and to register our candidates, and you're going to be going through that soon, the process of registering, getting signatures, and filing paperwork and all that. So we do all that, and so we're just as much a legitimate option as any of the big parties.
Absolutely. And this year we're going to change that about how many people know who we are, especially
Wonderful.
in Oxford.
Super, super, very excellent. And what for you are the top issues? Like a lot of people get involved for different reasons, and there's a lot of issues in Canada. I think now they're just piling up one on top of the other. They interact. Some of the issues create other problems. What's the top three issues for you in Canada?
So I think the main one is the flow of money. So I am 100% in agreement with the CHP's platform on changing the income tax to a fair consumers tax. And I think that's one of the top issues for me because a lot of us, we work really hard. We spend a lot of time working overtime. And yes, we have to pay taxes. The government needs money to do what they do. But I think there's something that speaks to me about being able to have more control over my money. Because at the end of the day, I am a generous person. And it's kind of like when you're working for yourself, if you're working under a boss, the job you might do might be a little more stressful or tiresome. But when you become your own boss, you can do the exact same job and feel like a joy and a freedom to it, right? Because there's that
Yeah.
lack of pressure on it. But I see the same thing with the income tax and the fair consumers tax. It's removing that pressure. And I know I'm not the best Canadian. I know there's tons of Canadians that are way more generous than I am, but I just feel like it would really give that freedom to people to decide, okay, I do want to sow into my country. And also, I want to be able to have more control over my savings. And I think that would just spur a lot of generosity in people and change the dynamic. So the taxes is number one. Number two is the CHP is the only pro-life um, party in Canada, only federal party that's pro-life. And I I love that, and I think it comes with a huge responsibility. And I think that we need to come with the right message and a fresh method of uh, representing what it means to be pro-life. And that's the number two issue for me is definitely pro-life. And number three, I would have to say how CHP wants to reroute how some of our tax money is being spent. So you were talking about CBC earlier. There's, I forget what it is. It's like $1.7 billion annually that
Yeah.
gets tied up
Well,
into the
one point
CBC.
something, it's probably goes up and down, but they're actually asking for the CBC wants us to double that, to two
Oh my
point
goodness.
something. But anyway, it's horrendous, and they're giving away bonuses, I'm going to say unearned bonuses to their employees, mainly the higher echelon staff. And they don't really want to be accountable to anybody. They bristle when they get questioned about it. In Parliament, but that's taxpayer money, and it's being
Yep.
used. I think not only is it kind of luxurious spending that we don't really need, but it's actually being used against us. The CBC has become not a thermometer to tell us, what the temperature is, to tell us what's going on in the country. They've become a thermostat, and they control what a lot of Canadians think. They control the news feed. We saw it in COVID, and we see it with the abortion issue. We see it with the LGBT issues and freedom issues, that people are being brainwashed, propagandized with our own tax dollars are being used, which are being used against us. So yeah, that's right. That's one area that would be easy to cut them loose, let them become privately funded, let them find their way in the wilderness, because the use of taxpayer dollars to propagandize Canadians against righteous and moral governance is certainly horrendous. It's a terrible thing.
Absolutely. And then you can reroute all that taxpayer money to something else, borders or whatever, right?
Maybe paying down the debt, because
Yeah, taking down the national debt.
as we mentioned quite frequently, we're in 1.2 trillion dollars in debt, and it costs us every day 125 million dollars paying interest on the debt, and that's not paying off the debt. That's just keeping the bankers away from the door. We're also still using the credit card on top of that for another $110 million a day. So we're going in debt at the rate of $110 million a day and paying interest of 125. If that continues, that trend continues, we will have no money for any, public purposes like build roads or any of the things that we need in Canada. Border patrol, it would be, if we actually were controlling our borders, we'd be in a lot better shape, and we might not be facing these tariffs. By the way, what are you hearing in your neck of the woods about the tariffs?
Uh, Probably the same thing that's going all over Canada right now. The tariffs in my neck of the woods, it's a 50-50 split between there's the 50% of people that don't think Canada should respond with tariffs, that they think they should respond just by fixing the border. And then there's the other 50% that thinks that Canada is actually doing the right thing by responding the way they have responded and feel like it has made Donald Trump back down. So it's a 50-50 split depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah. Well, if the recent Oval Office experience of Mr. Zelensky is any indication, I don't think we have the cards to make Donald Trump cower in the corner. It's pretty easy to get on his wrong side now, but it's not that I mean, this is my opinion, of course. As you say, there are differences of opinion about it. A lot of Canadians are just upset that he would threaten the tariffs, but
Yep.
by the same token, I think I've become very aware, which I was not. I have to say, before Donald Trump made those accusations about fentanyl and terrorism coming into the U.S., I thought that was ridiculous. I thought none of it's coming through Canada; it's all coming from Mexico. But I was wrong. There's been a lot of information come to light in the last few weeks, and I think in that sense, the tariffs and threats of tariffs has actually done us a service by waking us up to something that's not only bad for the United States, it's bad for Canada to allow Vancouver, for instance, to be used as an import center for the components of fentanyl, and then to
That's right.
allow that to be dispersed from there through, you know, the cartels and the casinos and real estate, ways of hiding that money. But anyway, I'm not surprised that people are having different takes and that some people are upset about it.
Yeah,
But I
it's one
do
of
think,
those things where it's um you got to really watch how things play out too, right? Because it says in the Bible that wisdom's shown right by its result. So sometimes things can look messy in the process, but they can actually produce, like you said, well, okay, now it's starting to expose a little bit of stuff that some of us didn't know was actually going on in our own country. And I think fentanyl has close to 50,000 deaths, more than World War II since 2016. And it shouldn't take a foreign president to get us to look within ourselves and be like, okay, there is some areas we need to clean up, even though it's a low percentage. It's still like I'm from a city where our population is 50,000. So that's fentanyl and opiates wiping out an entire city in 10 years.
yeah, yeah. No, and in BC, the left coast where I live, the BC government in kind of a partnership with Mr. Trudeau has, at least for the time being, legalized all drugs. So, they claim to be concerned about these fentanyl deaths, and we send people out every night reviving people who have overdosed, but we're doing nothing to prevent the spread of. And we've got so-called safe injection sites. We also have safe abortion clinics where half the people that go in there die as a result, the little people that are killed. Yeah, speaking of, you mentioned the 50,000 people in your city. Abortion kills about 100,000 a year in Canada, which is more or less the equivalent of most federal electoral districts, right? So it's when you look at it that way, we're doing most of the harm we're happening to us in Canada. We're doing it ourselves through our government, our financial institutions, and our court systems, our education system, and we're harming ourselves. So I don't think that picking a fight with Mr. Trump is going to win us any special favors from him.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's what you were just talking about the abortion deaths. That's what has me very excited about the CHP party is having the opportunity to advocate pro-life and like being able to explain people and share it with people why being pro-life is a benefit, why it's an advantage, being able to come up with alternative solutions. And yeah, that's why that was number two issue for me because
Sure.
there's a huge opportunity there to really bring change of mind to people.
And your number one issue, you mentioned our fair tax policy, a consumer tax to replace the income tax. I think let's just hover on that for a minute because some of our viewers and listeners may not be fully aware of that policy. We have had it discussed on this program, but just for those who may not have heard about it before, and by the way, it's a big thing in the States. There are people like former Governor Mike Huckabee that have talked a lot about the fair tax. But in Canada, what it would mean is we would, over time, it would take a little transition time. We would completely do away with the income tax. So uh, if you work overtime, right now, if you work overtime, you get punished almost for that because you pay a higher rate of tax for those overtime hours. And then all this money is taken away, and like I guess if you add up all the levels of taxation, it comes sometimes pretty close to 50%, certainly over 30%. And but we would go with you would keep your paycheck. You wouldn't be paying federal income tax on your paycheck, so you'd have all that extra money to spend. Now, when you buy things, you would pay a consumer tax, and that would be a flat rate tax on all goods and services, new goods and services. We wouldn't, for instance, one of our little uh, intricacies of that policy that's been discussed on our side is if you're buying a used car, you're not going to pay the tax on that because somebody already paid the tax on it when it was brand new, right? So if you're willing to have either a smaller car or a used car, you're not going to, you got all that extra money from, that's not being taxed at your workplace. And then you can control how much tax you spend by being frugal in your purchases, right? So, and then, as you mentioned earlier, you have more money to save, invest, and spend on the things you really want.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a huge policy that needs to be advocated more of the CHP.
So in your writing, you're going to be facing some of the same questions that all of our candidates face from time to time. One of those questions is, people are going to be talking about voting for one of the bigger parties that they hear more about on CBC or whatever, and that if they judged historically by who's in the House of Commons, they say, well, these other guys have a better chance of getting elected. They may be talking about the Conservative Party.
Hmm.
And that's in that regard. What would you say to voters in your district who say, well, I'd like to vote for you. I agree with you on everything, but I think I better vote for this other guy because I don't want the other guy to win, the different guy to win or lady.
Yeah, so that's the thing with being a Christian party. It puts us in a unique position. So I might have two different answers depending if I was speaking to a believer or speaking to a non-believer. But the main thing that I would probably go at is the CHP. You guys released um, a pamphlet a while ago, and it had some interesting facts about the Green Party and how when the Green Party came into play, it actually started moving the needle of all the other political platforms just by getting a small increase in votage. So that's probably where I would go with that is that giving your support to us now, even though we might not be in a position where we're going to get a seat, or maybe we're not going to be in a position where we're going to win government right now, giving your support to us now isn't a waste at all because it actually starts to move the needle. Because if you want to support us, you like our platform, you believe and you stand for the same things that we're advocating for in government, but your vote now can actually start moving the needle and getting the attention of those big parties, conservatives, liberals, and making them recognize, hey, there's an increase going on in this party. Maybe we need to start shifting how we're going about some of our far left policies, or maybe we need to start shifting on how we're handling this. People are starting to want a more conservative, godly government, and we need to make those adjustments if we're going to make sure these guys stay out of the way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
Well, that's
never a
right.
wasted vote.
Yeah. After an election is over and people look back at the percentage of votes that received by different parties, if they look back and say, "Oh, well, nobody's voting for that party," I guess nobody cares about pro-life or about the LGBT issues that are kind of causing a lot of grief around the country or our national debt. Nobody's, hardly anybody's voting for them. So why should I vote for them? Or why should I move in that direction? But if they see a significant, maybe even they lose a seat here and there because they are not representing the values that you and I hold dear, maybe they start to think, well, maybe you're right. Maybe we should be considering, the slaughter of the innocent preborn. One of the things that I say frequently is that God, the author and creator of life, cannot bless our nation while we continue to allow the shedding of innocent blood. And politicians who either endorse or tolerate that, refuse to, like are unwilling to take up the challenge and discuss it, are part of the problem. We didn't get where we are today because there were so many bad people in the country. We got here because so many people that cared about things didn't do anything about them, didn't say anything
Yep.
about them, didn't vote for the issues they concerned about, didn't give, to the charities or the parties that were representing their views. And we kind of slid backwards into the swamp where we are now. To get out, we're going to have to stand upright, walk on our own 2 feet, and actually declare truth to the multitudes.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And that's kind of the vision that kind of prompted me to get involved with the CHP is um, feeling like a call to move forward and a call forth for united action within the churches as well. Because we're the Christian Heritage Party, the majority of our votes are going to have to come from Christian votes at the beginning. I kind of see it like the CN Tower, right? You know how there's the foundation, and then the base of the tower is a little bit wider, but the tower gets more and more narrow as it goes up, and then there's the pod at the top, right? Well, the
Yeah,
pod would be our policy, or us having a seat in the House or forming government. The wide base would be the Christian vote, and then as we get up, I believe if we get a good solid chunk of Christians voting for us, I believe that we'll be able to actually get some secular conservatives to start voting for us too once they see the fullness of what the party's actually about, right? And I think we need to build in that manner too, where we're working to unite the churches and get them to cooperate around when it comes to issues like politics and stuff, right? They can all still have their individual denomination and do their church how they would like to do their church. But if you look at uh, NATO, it's got 32 different countries in it, and they're all independent countries. They all govern their country. They all have different traditions. But when it comes to issues like defense, they have mandatory and mutual cooperation. And that's actually a vision I have for Oxford County is trying to get the churches to kind of see that as well, where we can actually come to the table and sit around the table to defend our communities that we live in by getting a Christian government in place.
yeah, excellent. And you touched on something that is so important for not only Christians and unbelievers to for both Christians and unbelievers to understand, and that is that our policies are good for everybody. They're not just
Yep,
good for Christians, they're good for unbelievers. I mean, we believe in free speech. We believe do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, love your neighbor as yourself. We want our justice system to work. We want our economy to, be restored and stopped, misusing taxpayers' money. We want to
yep,
control our borders so that we can have a better success with our housing affordability and our healthcare system. I mean, the things we want are good for everybody. It's not about imposing Christian values on people. It's
yep,
about protecting people from harmful, socialist values that have done so much destruction to people. We had a couple joined our party. They've since passed from this earth, but uh, he was a World War II veteran, and I visited with him. He was not particularly a religious person. In fact, he said, right off the bat, I'm not a religious person. But as
yep.
we talked, he said, I risked my life for my country in World War II, and now I'm losing my country. He and his wife became lifelong members of the Christian Heritage Party, and he did everything he could to help us because he saw that we were representing the same values that he fought for in World War II.
That's absolutely amazing. And yeah, no words can even explain how amazing that is because that's the whole heart of this thing, right? Like our the party's values are in my eyes, my opinion, are the closest thing to what Canada was actually founded upon. And it's the preservation of that. And I'm so glad that that gentleman had the opportunity to be able to look past the religious lens and actually see that as well, where it's like, hey, man, like this is actually beneficial for me, even though I'm not a Christian.
Right. Yeah. So one more question, and then I'll let you get on with other things that you're doing. But what would you say to young men and women across the country who are concerned about things like I'm thinking about the motivation that caused you to pick up the phone and reach out and say, if you're looking for a candidate, I'm available, right? I mean, there's many districts in the country. Sadly, there's many districts where we do not yet have a Christian Heritage Party candidate. And I think a lot of people, young and old, don't necessarily see themselves as having the skills or the experience or the training to be a candidate. And what they don't realize is that we're all human beings. If you have moral principles, if you are able to think clearly about the issues, if you understand, what needs to happen for this country to, get back on its feet, you may be qualified to be a Christian Heritage Party candidate. So maybe give what if you're speaking to a young man or a young woman who's in that situation, they're sad about what's happening and they have not considered being a candidate. What would you tell them?
To do whatever they have to do to get involved. This is your country. This is their country. This is You are supposed to govern your country. You are supposed to have a say in how your country is governed, and that is your right to actually be able to stand up and use your voice and say, this is what I want to see happen in my country. So I would say to them, do whatever you need to do to get involved. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. You can actually, you know what? You can be afraid and you can be a little nervous. Just don't be without courage
Yeah.
because it's just like anything else. It's joining a community of people that are going to support you and help you and give you the training and the mentoring you need to be able to achieve whatever vision it is you have within getting involved. But do not back down from using your voice.
Yeah. Well, that's I would say the biggest thing, yeah, even for those who aren't directly involved in the political scene, we need people who, when you see something uh, going on and you know that it's wrong, you need to speak up. There's people, I think there is a new movement of people, young and old, who are going to, town halls and school boards across the country and expressing truth, that has somehow been ignored, expressing important principles of morality, justice, and freedom that if they don't hear it, if that's not being spoken, maybe you're the guy or the lady who has to bring it up and speak it forth. So, Jacob Watson, we're so grateful that you are stepping into this role. I know we're going to have a lot of interaction between now and whenever, whenever the campaign starts, and certainly before it ends. But we're so glad to have you as a candidate in Oxford, in Ontario. And any final words and final thing you'd like to say to folks before we close off for the day?
Um, yeah, I'd really like to say to anyone that's listening to really challenge your mindset and challenge your current views on your understanding of the church's involvement in government. And really study the Bible. Really look into the Bible and um, line things up for yourself. God has created us. God has created government. God has created the church. They're two different lanes, but we are to be involved in all of it because everything on in the earth belongs to the Lord, including the government.
Yeah, amen, amen. So, yeah, when God called Moses, Moses had a few excuses why he wasn't the guy, and God didn't tolerate those excuses. He basically gave him a commission and empowered him to do what he needed to do. And no matter how intimidating it might seem, those who know their God will be strong. It says in the Bible, in the last days, those that know their God will be strong and do exploits. And I think the political realm is one place where we need some people doing exploits for the good of it.
Absolutely. That's actually the verse I used in my bio for
Oh,
the AGM.
oh, wonderful. Well, Jacob Watson, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you stepping forward, stepping up to the plate, and being a voice for righteousness, morality, and sound public policy in Oxford, Ontario. Thank you, and all the best in the upcoming campaign.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Rod.
Thanks a lot. God bless.
God bless.